Hi, my name is Ming Wong. I'm an artist. I've been doing several years of research into the history of Chinese cinema, especially Cantonese opera cinema. This was a time when Cantonese opera actors from Hong Kong would go and perform in California, in the USA, for the predominantly southern Chinese immigrants. And that's where they encountered cinema in Hollywood, and they brought some of the knowledge and technology back to China via Hong Kong. They made a lot of very experimental, very innovative cinema, where they fused East and West, tradition and technology. And this can be seen in some of the Cantonese opera movies in the 30s and 40s. It also changed the whole form of Cantonese opera. I have a personal interest in Cantonese opera because I've been following it since I was a young child growing up in Singapore.
I do remember in my founder's memories was 70s. These wayang stages are often the occasion to look for, because when there is either the 7th month or some deity's birthday. I live in Bukit Merah. This is where there are a lot of temples, and as a kid you tend to go down and kind of play around the structure.
I also used to follow my grandmother to see Cantonese opera performances, because my aunt is a Cantonese opera actress herself. And so for me, it has always remained a potent signifier of Chinese identity, of my own personal Cantonese identity, but also as a symbol of a way of life and a way of thinking, and a knowledge that many people deem to be in danger of becoming extinct.
我是大这个戏台，以前是大这个戏台为生啊，现在已经没有了。这个戏台已经很没落了，所以大做很少了。现在，从小我都跟着我的父亲后面啊这样做咯。这个行业啊，我本身就做了40多年了。连加我父亲的时候做，已经做了60多年了。
For the structure, I enlisted the help of Randy Chan, who's an architect. And through him, I got to know Mr. Lee Bing Sing, who is a master Wayang stage builder. He's like the only one in Singapore who can still do it and who still has the materials.
我父亲的师傅就从中国来了。我父亲以前20出岁的时候，又帮他做工，就从那边学的来了。连我父亲学的，就自己下外一个小公司做那个戏台。连我那个时候我很小，然后我长大10几岁的时候，我就跟着我父亲这样做咯，连做到现在。
The whole idea of a wayang is an appealing one, where one could really see that it is a local culture, where the transfer of knowledge is from father to son. And that interest is also about how the knowledge of built work is an intimate one. So as an architect, I guess in our practice, we learn Western architecture. So knowing a wayang construction in a way allows one to kind of understand where you come from.
做那个戏台，大部分是做给神明看的。那个神明要求看要做什么戏，如果你做什么戏，都有什么戏的，好像台啊，会比较适合那个。如果你是做一个好像打仗的，好像生活成就这种打仗的戏啊，它的戏台的布景会不一样的。那种戏台要比较大一点啦。连你做那个比较文的戏，好像家里小市民的戏，那个戏台就不用这么大了。因为图啊，有些人是他们的 client 啊，会叫我们说你要下一个看福建还是广东，还是潮州，还是海南的，以前很多，连现在的戏台很少了。
The usual thinking around it these days is that Wayang is a dying art trade, etc. But I thought that as an artist, I could reimagine the forms of cultural identity actually are enduring and persistent. Perhaps in a time in the future where it might not be so common. Hence, the Wayang Spaceship is a way for me to reimagine this future, that In the daytime, the Wayang Spaceship is camouflaged. You don't know that it's there. It blends with the surroundings. But if you know where it is and you go and look for it, and at a specific time, at dusk, when night falls, a portal would open and you would be able to enter into this world where the Wayang of the future, Cantonese opera of the future, would begin to enact.
The project is really initiated under the Singapore Art Museum's kind of flagship public art initiative that launched formally in July of 2022. And the Everyday Museum is really a curatorial strategy to introduce art into public spaces, right? So in that way, every space can enable a kind of an encounter with contemporary practice. The Wayang Spaceship is a great example of this because it does not really take on a kind of a more typical sculptural approach that our publics in Singapore are used to.
Another point to add also is, to think about the idea of the Wayang Spaceship as public art and the discourse of public art and why is it important as well. Especially in the conditions of our times right now, in thinking about sustainability, thinking about the climate crisis. What does it mean to build public art?
I think we are at this moment, isn't it, where climatic change is very much a everybody issue, and framing it within the artistic endeavor, of course, the art piece itself can be a statement towards the question of this climatic change. Or the act of the artwork is sustainable. That's also another way to say, through my action, I am responsible for the resources that I use to make the art. So I think this work itself, with collaboration with Sam, has both of this trajectory coming together. Because the material culture is sustainable without we ourselves trying to invent one. So that itself is already sustainable.
In some ways, older systems of making where wayang stages would be kind of erected and dismantled with ease is still very much part of this project. The work not only activates, but could quite literally be dismantled and moved to a different location, either on the island or even beyond its shores.
As a wayang structure, it is also about using hands-on way to kind of build a structure which doesn't need machinery. Everything is through labor, through a skill of tying, through a skill of seeing. You could see Mr. Lee's form of measurement is the eye, because of his experience, how he can see, oh, it is slanted, and he can just tell the worker to say, hey, can you adjust? It's quite amazing how he does it.
Actually, for this project, the planning started from last year, April. Yeah, then from artist selections, then artist proposals, and up to when we come to on-site. Actually, we start from June this year. Yeah, then we start with fabrications of the stage. We started with Mr. Lee to help us to build the stage.
第一点你要去买那个绳子绑那个戏台了，第二点你要买那个木，那个古龙木说顶不坡的，顶不坡是那个门洞后的顶不坡，你要去那边。 去那个 port 那边找，以前我们的 client 是从那边找，那边的人就从印尼，看你要多长，他就开给你了，开给你，我在 port 我们就运来新加坡，早期是用来运来那个 port， 我们就去 port 那边拿，好像你要买100只啊，就1000只你那边拿咯，你要大只小只你要跟那个人讲了，每只的收费是不一样，那个 platform 木板啊，是一种比较好的板钉片的。 那个板是你去那个喷塑店啊，大型的店啊，你去跟他讲你要多长的板啊，他都会卖给你的。其实你不是懂那个戏台要第一点要搭在哪里，看那个哪个地方。如果那个地方是很平的地方，你就需要它的材料没有这么多。那个地方比较好像高度啊不平稳啊，你就要搭做好一点，做稳一点。那你的材料肯定要够，你的材料你的 material 你准备要。 肯定要准备好去那边才可以做。你一看到那个船是平的，你就拿4架也可以，6架也可以。那个我们叫做蚂蚁放住。那你看那个地啊，你平啊，你就塞到那个 pole 4只 pole 先， 然后你再慢慢一系的再 continue 咯。那你量一下，看这里你要8折，那边要8折，量一下，那个木啊，你大概都要量一下，看多高这样咯。那个鼓全部放好了，你才来做才来盖那个帆布。看盖帆布的时候，你要看那个地方啊，那个风啊要从哪里来。如果风从right hand side来，你的帆布啊肯定要盖在 left hand side 先。等一下你的 right hand side 你的帆布盖过头啊，都不会出风啊，一带会比较妥当，会比较稳。广东的器材会比较大，应该差不多36、40折这样。那广东的器材中间啊，我们要做大一点哦。我们买的木啊。只是肯定要买大一点的才会稳啊，这样。
Slight difference, of course, was the material itself, where it take a few more steps because it is not a material that is commonly used in wayang. It is a found object. We work with Ming, who is operating from Berlin, so we'll send a sampling of the material, and we'll have to kind of take the material and check with Mr. Lee, and that's step 1. Step 2, if we get an okay, is how we can stitch them, because the material come in a bale. You need to stitch them through locally. So there are some steps relating to that enclosure. And then there's also the former part, the diorama, which is the bulk of what this whole visual is. It is a reinterpretation. In tradition, wayang stage is using a kind of textile plywood, but in this case we are using steel work, light boxes, dichroic, film, with acrylic. There's some kind of precision that's needed.
After that, we have the general contractor to help us to build the light box, which because of the scale of the box is very big, very huge. So we have to do it on site. We did the welding, like cutting, all those on site. So we put it up on the stage. After that, we bring in acrylics. We install the film onto the acrylic. Then we put in the light box. After that, we also sourcing for the light tubes that we need to buy from all around Singapore, because all due to the so-called it's an old fluorescence that we're going to use. Then we have problems getting ballast, and we have to ship it in from Germany. Yeah, in all, I think the sourcing and all those process, it takes us 2-3 months. Then for the installation itself, we take another 2 months. Yeah, and here we are, that we got exhibition up.
It's important to observe where this very interview is happening. In fact, the spaceship is right behind us, but also in the background is the container seaport.
I'm still mesmerized by the fact that it happened at the port, at the fringe of the port.
Location played an important part in my decision to create the Wayang Spaceship here, because in a way we are going back to where everything came from. Chinese Wayang, the street opera, came with the immigrants via boat from southern China to the port of Singapore.
You can see there's so many trucks going on. You can also hear the alarms blazing, and in some ways this becomes the circumstances, the context, the environment within which the Wayang Spaceship thrives.
So in a way, we are coming back to where everything started. Our forefathers as immigrants came from the southern coast of China via ship to the port of Singapore. And that's also how the Chinese opera, the street opera came. And here we are at the container port terminal, where you see the sign of contemporary international global trading and commerce.
And during this time, incredible modernizations happened. One of the key modernizations that occurred was that the kinds of materials that were used for the building of the stages shifted.
60年代、70年代的时候，器材是用那个 adapt 来做的，人中间呢放一个那个 sailing boat 的帆布啊，那个帆布印度的 sailing boat 帆布放在中间，两个旁边呢是放那个 adapt 的，这样搭起了。然后差不多80年代，我那个年代的时候啦，80年代 啊，做已经开始转变啊，那个盖的那个帆布，连盖到现在是盖帆布，连帆布是越来越进步，越来越好。
Think about the Wayang Spaceship is even the term Wayang and how it has adapted. You know, the term Wayang comes from Javanese shadow puppet theatre, but in that organic creolization, we have seen how it has evolved. You know, watching Wayang, basically watching film on a silver screen or watching a ritual theatre or a street opera. In a way, it reflects the technologies of the time, from image technology, which you see in Javanese shadow puppet theatre, to screen technology. So it really thinks about how there is this organic evolution in how we think as well, based on a very vernacular understanding of our climate and our environment.
For the light show that happens after dark, I worked with light artists, I worked with a sound artist, and I also worked with a filmmaker. We had to find ways to show enough of the traditional parts of Chinese Wayang, but also to be able to allow an imagination of what the future could be. When the portal opens in the evening, you will be introduced to a character who is in a way a messenger from the future. I call this messenger a scholar warrior figure, which is a modern role in Chinese opera. It's a combination of two traditional roles, which is the warrior and the scholar. And it was only in the 20th century that the role of the warrior scholar was combined. And this is usually a leading man, often played by a male impersonator, a female actor, who is handsome, who is a great warrior, but also an artist, poet.
Another very interesting evolution happened. At times, a lot of the performers were all female troupes, and as a result, female performers started taking on male roles, and as a result, led to all sorts of incredible emancipatory effects as well.
This scholar warrior figure has traveled through time and space, from ancient China, from mythological past to contemporary times, and into the future. This figure is kind of like my avatar as an artist, as I try to imagine where we are heading, what we would like the future to be, what lessons could there be from the past, how we mold the future together.
We are hoping that this will also challenge our publics and our communities to think about public art, and that the public art itself can be quite different from your typical kind of static object which stays in one place for an extended period of time.
Nowadays, it's very rare for people to get up close to a Wayang stage. And of course, when we incorporate with contemporary art, you have the Wayang Spaceship here. I feel that a traditional Wayang stage is bring closer to public for all ages, like from young to old. Those kids that have not seen any stage before is a good opportunity.
其实我觉得是不会帮这个行业有什么进点啊，但是给一小部分的年轻人知道啊，这个戏台的故事啊，这样，因为比如这种是传统行业啊，是给多一点人知道啊，给多一点人认识啊，是好了，还会可以保持这个好像传统的东西是比较好了，有传统行业会保留一点，多少都要保留，我是认为这样而已。
How we form the relationship with some of the transmission of old culture. This is the moment of the dialogue. Through art, we can speak of this relationship, which is in this modern day Singapore, which is often tend to be taken for granted, from the fact that we needed it to be extinct before we can talk about it. If anything else, it is a meaningful presentation that we hope to bring across to the community at large, and hope that we could treasure what we have before everything becomes too regulated and lost in this generation itself.